Thank you so much for coming in tonight. As Elizabeth said, there's a lot of other things that I'm sure you'd all rather be doing. This is a rather depressing subject, but I think it's important. We can't pretend any longer that we're not at war. At this point, Christians are the most persecuted group of today, and Islam has become the great persecuting religion of the modern age. The world seems to have no idea of the extent and brutality of it. In virtually every Islamic country, the persecution is profound and becoming worse, not better. Michael Korn said the following: "This is the most grotesque and consistent example of direct persecution since the Nazi Holocaust." Nigeria, which is more than 50% Christian, has become a bloodbath because of Islamist violence. Islamic groups in Syria have demonstrated a rapid decline into brutality, bringing public displays of torture to new levels, with executions staged to look like crucifixions. In Iraq and Syria, where Christians have lived in these lands long before Islam even existed, have left in enormous numbers, making the entire region almost free of the followers of Christ. Pakistan has witnessed hundreds of attacks and acts of violence. Christians have been raped, murdered, beaten, beheaded, and tortured to death. In Egypt, thousands have been killed and tens of thousands victimized and attacked under the Muslim Brotherhood. The war on the Christian Copts and most indigenous inhabitants continues. In the overwhelmingly Catholic Philippines, Islamic terror groups have declared war on Christianity. In Muslim Indonesia, jihadist militia have murdered countless people, including the beheading of a group of Christian schoolgirls and the subsequent boasting of the act as a gift to Allah. Bangladesh, Gaza, Mali, Sudan, Somalia, Central African Republic, the Maldives, and various other countries, including Europe and North America, have suffered various attacks which are all aimed specifically at Christian people and Christian targets. Instead of studying the Quranic quotes and the history and traditions of Islam, which underpin most of this anti-Christian psychosis, they pretend that all religions are capable of such darkness, and Islam itself has nothing to do with it. The only thing more overwhelming than the body count of the global jihad is the denial, apathy, apologetics of the West. And there is nothing more heinous than the conquest and slaughter rooted in jihadist doctrine, and that is the silence and the sanction of the West. We will never defeat Islam by emails, books, and web pages. We must take to the streets and take our message to the public, because a demonstration like we're having tomorrow is a manifestation of courage and an assertion of political power. Jesus told his followers to turn the other cheek and love your enemies. Crimes committed by Christians are in spite of, and not because of, the words and the actions of Jesus. Can the same be said about Islam? No person should be criticized because of their faith, but no faith should escape criticism because people are intimidated and frightened. The blood of millions of Christians cries out for justice, and I, for one, shall not turn away and pretend that the new Holocaust is not taking place. Thank you.
I think Valerie wants to say something. What Henrik is saying is that the good Muslims are bad Muslims, and the bad Muslims are good Muslims. That's just a rule of thumb.
The thing that I think is really important to remember, I do have a couple, there's actually 2 moderate Muslims in all of Canada. And I get into these heated arguments with one of them because I say, Raheel, you guys have got to start standing up and speaking out, because it's disgusting what's going on around the world in the name of your religion. And she goes, well, yes, but you know, it's so difficult because in the community, if you stand up and you speak out, you're going to be ostracized and threatened, and so people are too nervous to say anything, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know what, Raheel, I've had enough of all this now. This is just a big fat cop-out. Because if Christians were behaving like this, if I saw people of my religion slaughtering, beheading, and hanging homosexuals in Iran off trains, I would not stay silent. And I said, to just sit there all the time and say that we're too nervous, I said, you know what? What about me? What about all the people sitting on this panel and the freedom fighters around the world that are risking our lives with fatwas on our heads and having all these organizations, these Islamic organizations, who have us in their crosshairs, who want to have lawsuits against us, who tie us up with lawfare, and so on and so forth. So you know what? It's a big comment to say we're all too afraid, because look at us. You know, we're not afraid to speak out. And we're going to continue to speak out until people listen to us and until people understand that we're at war. We are at war. It's a different enemy. It's not like you can name a country. It's an insidious thing that's everywhere. We are at war. We have to wake up. We cannot be apathetic any longer. And we have to be proud to be Christians and Jews and Buddhists and Sikhs and whatever it is who live by love and not hatred. I'm going to comment on this as a Canadian. And the one thing that you have in the United States that I do not have in my country is you have the First Amendment. That gives you free speech and protects you. Canada does not have that. We have something called the Canadian Human Rights Commission. And the Canadian Human Rights Commission can basically, if you don't like me, and you don't like something I've said or done, you can take me there. It doesn't cost you anything. It costs me everything to defend myself. It's not lawyers that sit on the panel, it's just people who have been appointed by the government. We have somebody called Ezra Levant, who printed the Danish cartoons. He owned his own newspaper in Calgary. And he decided he was going to print those cartoons because I live in Canada, this is a place of freedom, and I'm going to print them. And he was taken to the Human Rights Commission, and it cost him over $200,000 and 900 days of his life to be taken there. Mark Stein, who's a very well-known author, a Canadian, I'm very proud to say, he wrote an article in the Plains magazine, and he quoted directly from the Quran. And a Muslim didn't like it, and they took Maclean's magazine to court, and that cost over $1 million. So what they do is that, you know, they intimidate us, they terrify us, they tie us up with lawfare, because our enemy is funded with petro-billions of dollars, and we have no money. All our organizations are bust broke. You know, we're scrambling all the time, so we are really committed to this whole thing. But it's really frightening in my country because, I mean, I'm threatened often. I mean, I get the phone calls, oh, you know, I heard the so-and-so, he's going to bring down these people, and I'm for Canada's one of them. We had a photographer in Quebec City who was in a park on a Saturday watching a woman in a full kneecap, and he was amazed at, you know, the reactions of people seeing this woman in her walking garbage bag. And so he took some pictures, and then he wrote an article, and he said, you know, this was a Saturday in a park in Quebec City, and look at the, you know, look at the expression on the people's faces. Well, about a month after that appeared, he got a lawsuit for $150,000 because his wife had been insulted. I mean, it could have been a man underneath the burqa. This is our ridiculous laws, okay? And that will be tied up forever. It goes on and on and on. You are lucky with the First Amendment. We don't have that. But you know what? They're not going to shut me up.